The most dangerous people don't argue, they observe. Some people don't raise their voice. They don't try to dominate the room. Yet somehow, they can't be controlled. Emotional self-control removes leverage, because manipulation relies on emotional access. When a person can provoke fear, guilt, excitement, or anger, they gain a handle on your decisions. Emotions speed up thinking, narrow perception, and push people toward impulsive choices. A person who remains emotionally regulated does not provide that handle. Their inner state is not easily hijacked, so external pressure loses its force. Calm becomes a shield, not passive, but deliberate and aware. People who control their emotions are not emotionless. They feel everything. They do not let feelings dictate their behavior in real time. This delay between stimulus and response is where power lives. Manipulators thrive on immediacy. They push for instant reactions, quick answers, and emotional commitments before clarity can form. Emotional self-control slows the interaction down. It forces the other person to operate without urgency. Without urgency, most manipulation collapses. When someone stays composed, they deny others the feedback they seek. Manipulative behavior depends on visible reactions to adjust strategy. Anger shows where the boundary is soft. Guilt shows where loyalty can be exploited. Anxiety shows where fear can be used as a tool. Emotional control keeps these signals muted. Without emotional data, the manipulator is effectively blind, guessing instead of steering. Emotional self-control also prevents emotional contagion. Humans unconsciously mirror the emotional states of others. A manipulator often escalates intensity to pull someone into their emotional frame. Calm resists that pull. Instead of being absorbed into chaos, the emotionally controlled person becomes an anchor. The dynamic reverses. The calmer presence begins to influence the room, forcing others to regulate themselves or expose their instability. Another critical aspect is self-trust. Emotional regulation is rooted in a stable internal reference point. People who trust their perceptions do not need constant reassurance or external validation. This removes a major leverage point. Approval, praise, and withdrawal of affection stop working as tools of control. When validation is internal, emotional rewards and punishments lose their effect. Emotional self-control also creates unpredictability. Manipulation depends on predictability. If someone reacts the same way every time they are pressured, guilted, or threatened, they become easy to manage. Controlled emotions disrupt this pattern. Responses become measured, thoughtful, and situational rather than automatic. This makes it difficult to script outcomes or anticipate reactions. Finally, emotional self-control shifts power from reaction to choice. Reacting is automatic and externally driven. Choosing is intentional and internally driven. When a person consistently chooses how they respond, they reclaim authorship over their behavior. No emotional button can be pressed without consent. Leverage disappears, not because the manipulator stops trying, but because there is nothing left to grab onto. Silence reveals intent because most people are uncomfortable without noise, reassurance, or immediate feedback. When silence enters a conversation, it removes the social padding that hides true motives. Words can be crafted, rehearsed, and manipulated, but silence creates a psychological vacuum. In that vacuum, intention surfaces naturally. People begin to fill the space, often without realizing they are exposing themselves. Manipulators rely heavily on dialogue control. They guide conversations through rapid talking, emotional framing, and selective information. Silence disrupts this rhythm. When someone stops responding too quickly, the manipulator loses momentum. The pressure they were applying has nowhere to land. To regain control, they often speak more, and in doing so, reveal inconsistencies, exaggerations, or hidden agendas that would have remained concealed in a fast, moving exchange. Silence also removes emotional reinforcement. Many behaviors are sustained because they are rewarded with reactions. Approval, resistance, confusion, or even anger can all serve as reinforcement. Silence provides none of these. Without feedback, people default to their underlying drives. A person acting in good faith will slow down, clarify, or wait respectfully. A person acting with intent to control will push, escalate, or attempt to provoke a response, exposing their objective through behavior rather than words. Another powerful function of silence is that it shifts the cognitive load. When you speak less, the other person must carry the mental effort of the interaction. They are forced to explain, justify, and elaborate. This often leads to over-disclosure. The more someone talks under pressure, the more their priorities, fears, and strategies become visible. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the other person back to themselves. Silence also weakens false urgency. Manipulation often uses time pressure to bypass rational evaluation. Phrases that demand immediate answers or emotional decisions depend on a quick response. Silence refuses that demand. It slows the timeline and reintroduces thinking. When urgency is not met with compliance, its artificial nature becomes obvious, revealing whether the situation was truly critical or strategically framed. In addition, silence tests respect for boundaries. When someone is comfortable with silence, they communicate that they do not need to fill space to be valued or understood. This often triggers impatience in those who seek control. Attempts to interrupt silence through guilt, intimidation, or persuasion show how much someone depends on dominance rather than mutual understanding. Intent becomes visible through how they respond to not being accommodated. Silence also enhances perception. When you are not focused on speaking, you can observe tone shifts, body language, pacing, and emotional leakage. Subtle cues emerge that are normally drowned out by conversation. These cues often communicate more truth than words ever could. The absence of speech sharpens awareness, making intention harder to hide. Ultimately, silence is not absence but presence. It creates space where behavior replaces performance. In that space, intent has no script to follow, and no audience to manipulate. When you combine emotional self-control with silence, manipulation loses its foundation. There is nothing to provoke and nothing to steer. Pressure fades, urgency weakens, and hidden motives surface on their own. Power shifts away from those who seek control and toward those who govern themselves. In a world full of noise, reactivity, and emotional bait, the quiet, grounded mind becomes untouchable.